Good morning, everybody. Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Wednesday. Happy blast and a half. And I have an awesome guest. I mean, Lisa Rangel, who you know is the queen of straight talk, called this woman the real deal. And Leslie Neidick, thank you so much for joining today. Leslie is the real deal, and she also deals with some very real topics, including conflict strategies. And this is somebody who not only deals with conflict strategies, but teaches us how to embrace the whole idea of conflict. And back to your humble beginnings, Leslie, here
Yes.
she was in the real estate world and at Radio City. I mean, Radio City Music Hall. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Not a rocket, but either way, this is how she found her why and uncovered that through all these situations and all these opportunities, she was dealing with a lot of conflict and decided to do something about it. Today, she's also a professor at NYU and teaches parts of conflict strategy to students and has a blog called The Strats.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Leslie. Thank you
I'm
so much for joining. And I also did a shout out. If you have questions about business bullies, this is your time. So put them in the chat. And so,
thank
what we're going to get started with today, Leslie, is really just like we've been talking previously to the show, and give us a quick skinny on what is happening and why this topic is so popular right now. Why is this hitting this huge crescendo of discussion?
sure. Well, I mean, some of the statistics reveal it, and they're scary. Last year's survey by the Workplace Bullying Institute indicates that 30% of employees believe they're being bullied. The number goes up even higher in the survey of remote workers. It goes to over 40%. Why is this happening? I think there's lots of layers. There's everything from, we all know that most managers became managers just because they got promoted, and there hasn't been a lot of training of management and communication skills. There, quote, there hasn't been time for it, and it's kind of gone by the wayside. Um, it's a skill to communicate and manage. Otherwise, people fall back on what they've experienced in the past, and bullying has been prevalent. So it gets duplicated and copied. I obviously we
It's
have
like
to say
multi generational bullying,
absolutely. It just
right?
gets carried on and inherited, so to speak. And we have to say the last 2 years for all of us has had anxiety and stress. And once a bully has even higher anxiety and stress, it's only going to increase how much it's occurring, because that's usually the driver of why they're a bully in the first place. It's about them and what's going on inside of them. And I think that social media like LinkedIn has given people a chance to even talk about it and go, oh, wow, I'm not the only one who's experienced this. So I think separating ourselves from the physical environment of the office has enabled us to recognize, like, wow, this is something I shouldn't put up with. And I didn't
What you
realize.
shared. Oh my God. And it's so true. We think at first, oh, this is only happening to me. Like, what did I do? Or how could this be? This person is just so unusual. They're like doing this and they're doing that. And then you find that everybody that you know has been part of a situation of business bullying. And I think that what you said, oh man, is so true. Just because you're promoted doesn't mean that you are qualified to manage people. And
Exactly.
that does get very scary, especially because there is so much at stake in our work life, and the repercussions of being in a bullying situation at work. I shared and you shared, this has happened to me many
Yeah.
times. and the stress. I remember like pulling over to the side of the road and literally vomiting on my way because I was so terrified about what was going to happen when I got to the office from this bully. So we
Absolutely.
have a very special guest here, John Supple. He is a guy that I met in San Miguel. Him and his wife Karen, amazing. It says too many leaders I know have the I was shit upon on my career, and now it's my turn. Kick the
Yes.
can all the way down. And so, thank you for sharing this, John. And I'm really, I like it's true, right?
Yes.
Now I'm in a position of power. I was not in a position of power, and now I can. And king me, I get to boss people around. And in our intellectual minds, we know that isn't leadership,
Right.
but that still happens.
Absolutely. And it's all they know. So they're like, hey, it created me, so I'll create a few more leaders that way.
Totally.
Definitely not the best way.
It is not the best way. So the first question we're going to tackle here is, here you are, you've gotten into a new role, or maybe you haven't even signed the offer, and you want to do a little sniff testing. Like,
Yes.
are these people okay? Like, is this a safe environment? Am I bully free here? Or conversely, I am in my new job. Let's say I'm like day 63, right? I'm still in my 90 days, and I start to smell some sense of a business bully. What would those scents be? How might I know?
Sure. So the first thing is I want to distinguish between a bully and conflict because I see it all the time that they kind of get
Mm,
mixed together. So
smart.
because both trigger stress and other strong feelings. That's what they have in common. How they're different, and they are very different. Bullying in the workplace is repeated, harmful, and targeted behavior. And the repeated is the key word. And it's by one or more people, and it could be against one person or many. Conflict is when people perceive that their disagreement is going to threaten their needs, their interests, or their concerns. So there's really a big difference, even though they both trigger the same feelings of stress. The other way to distinguish bullying is primarily one direction. It's
Mm.
coming at you. And then conflict is multi-directional. There is back and forth dialogue with all those involved, as miserable as that can feel as well.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah,
So repeated and harmful targeted behavior, one direction
yes,
from the bully to you. And then
absolutely.
conflict could be in multiple directions, but there is not it's not just targeted at you. You could be targeting somebody else at the same time.
Absolutely. And things that a workplace bully will do, we've all felt it, but just to, outline some of them, a bully will repeatedly have behaviors that isolate or exclude others. They ignore other people's achievements. They target undeserved blame on you
Mhm.
or others. They take the undeserved credit all the time.
Ugh.
They tend to be deceptive. They'll lie to get their own way. Another thing that they do that's interesting, they'll change the rules just to set up everyone else for failure. And
Okay,
they
so
block
I want to just like
progress.
talk about, they will change the rules. They
Yes,
will be dishonest and lie. They will
yes,
take credit for your work or other things that have happened.
yes.
And then the last thing is that I want to know is, so now what? Now you've
I know.
identified it. What do you do? Because, run into HR for this, especially if it can seem somewhat benign. Oh, she took credit for this. How are you going to prove it? Do you need to document this? I mean, how
Yeah,
does this work?
yes. Um, well, one thing that is before that in the interview, and in
Mm.
your research of a company, a department, or the person, if you see a lot of turnover, find out why there's so much turnover. There could be lots of reasons, but there could be a bullying issue going on. I think turnover is the real indicator of that in those early days.
This is
Um,
really important because this is something that everyone who is interviewing can do, right?
yes,
There's so much we talk about in the job search process is out of your control. Yes, to some degree. I mean, look at LinkedIn. What is the average tenure? Get a grip. Is it 2 years? Is it less than a year? Is it 5 years? Not a guarantee, but certainly an indicator
it's a
of
hint.
culture.
I like to say it's a hint. It's not definitive because there are reasons why some positions have a lot of turnover. They're that starting point. But depending on the level of the position, if you see too much turnover, it could be a real hint that there's something else going on. But
Ooh, I
what
love
to
this.
do?
Yes,
There
Coffee of
definitely,
Paradise is putting out a book called Divide and Conquer, one of Bully's favorite tools. So,
wow.
um, dividing and conquering. So, stick together.
Yes. So one thing that has worked for me and for other people that I've coached at if it's at the very first occurrence where you feel bullying, you want to start to be determine, is this a bully starting the bullying process, so to speak, or is this a person who's demonstrating bad or bullying behavior? Um, and one way to determine that is what I like to say, respond to the content, not the behavior. And how to do that, I have a few examples. So if you are being bullied in front of a group, you might respond with, hey, what you have to say is really important. So let's meet in your office in a few minutes. You're going to get two different types of responses if it's a bully or someone who just was demonstrating some bullying behavior.
Okay, let's hear the difference.
Um, the Here's one. If you hear yelling or a raised, if you're being yelled at or a raised voice, this is what I might say. I understand this is a really important project. How can I best support you? That's where I'm really talking to the content, not how I heard it. And
Mm.
someone who's a bully is probably going to come back at me with more bullying. But someone who is just demonstrating some bad behavior is going to respond to that kind of thing like, oh, yes, what I need is da 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 da. Um, you may even try to confront the behavior, but not attacking the person like they've attacked you. So if they are raising their voice, I might say, hey, I find it difficult to hear when there are raised voices. I really want to know everything, like what's important in this project. And that
Yeah,
also, again, a non bully is going to respond well to
this is
that.
like 500 level. This is like I need a PhD because when I'm in the moment,
Yes.
it would be really hard to tease that out, right? Because
Yes.
you are the subject of that. So what can we do? Because when we are all under fire, I know for myself, I'm I'm not thinking so clearly, so straight, so strategically. So
I
should we just remove ourselves? What should we do?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, to anything that feels stressful, I mean, I so believe in the pause, but the pause can be a break. You may need, hey, I'm going to get back to you in a moment. Just if that's what works for you, practice that and always do that when you experience that kind of stress or attack. Like, hey, I'm going to get back to you in a moment. I have to take care of something. Um,
Yes.
and that gives you the pause to go, wait, you know what? I want to go in there and I want to demonstrate the way of talking that I hope I get back. And
Mm.
it does work with some people because the mimicking and mirroring, just like they've become a bully, probably because they've mimicked or mirrored what they've experienced, You can mimic like the kindness, like kill them with kindness, model the behavior you wish to receive in return. Again, a lifetime bully may not respond in any positive manner to that, but a non-bully who's just being mean in the moment will respond.
Yes. So Kevin D. Turner, just dear colleague of mine, love the pause. I call it the power of the pause. That pause, it could be 5 seconds, 10 seconds, but man, and I literally, I grew up without a pause. It took me like 50 years to find mine. And I remember the day and the
Yeah.
moment when I found it. Like that's how it was
And
for me.
it's a habit, like it's a skill to pause. So
Mhm.
you do have to practice like the pause when you're in non-stressful situations
Mm,
so that it becomes your habit to just always pause before respond. If you feel
right.
like everything boiling over inside, pause. But practice those pauses so that it just becomes second nature.
Okay, so practice with a pause before you actually need the pause, right?
Yes,
Get some
absolutely.
pause, push-ups today. I think that we all need some of those. So here you are, you have this going on, you've taken a pause, you are not necessarily responding to the person, you're responding to the information. Where does HR come in, or does HR not come in?
Oh, I think HR could come in. Every organization will be different. Um, I think that you have to figure out, you have to report. If it's bullying and this is repeated, it's not something to endure. You have to report it. Now, who do you report it to? It could be HR in your organization. It may just be kind of a paperwork thing. In some cases, they may not be someone who's going to advise of what to do next. You may report it to your manager. You may have to skip a level, report above that. Report to just a peer. Hey, sometimes you do need someone else's observation, like, hey, am I reading this all wrong? I've been bullied before. Maybe I'm too, maybe I'm over.
Is that with a
Um,
colleague, or who's that person?
it could be a colleague, someone who's observing it, but report it. It isn't something like, wow, it's just going to stop. I'm just going to put up with this. I want this job. I need this job. That's usually what leads people to put up with it. They
And then,
need that
is
job.
there retribution for that? Because or some kind of like, okay, so now you've been bullied for all this time, and they have a talk with your manager, and now where am I? Because now I'm like, yikes, they know I reported them. And does that leave you more vulnerable, or does that leave you more protected? Because I mean, for myself in the past, I've reported it, and I was okay, sorry, and more kept coming.
Sure. I think that's what tells us if that's an organization you want to be working for the long term. Most organizations want bullying out of their workplace. They know that it not only affects the victim, it affects everyone around the victim. It becomes, the toxic workplace because it gets repeated if it's allowed. So if that organization doesn't want to deal with it, and I hope that those are fewer and fewer, they may not be the organization you want to be with long term if
Okay,
they're not going to deal with it.
so this is one
Um,
of those CTJ moments that I call out, this come to Jesus moment, where you're like, listen, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and now the decision is yours.
yes,
We all have to make tough decisions, whether it's to stay or to go. But as we all know, the workplace can be such a petri dish, and of combination of emotions and mixed personalities that can either lift you up or or really push you down. And so if you are going through bullying, or think that it's more than just bullying behavior, a periodic bad day here and there, you know, really look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if this is something that you are really okay with enduring, because that just breeds more of it, right? And so this is really a pressing issue. Is what if it's a cultural issue within the company? Can you lead from behind, or do you just need to leave? What an incredible question.
I am a perpetual optimist. I always hope there's an opportunity. I do see, I mean, I think HR is changing, human resources in general. I think that the pandemic has changed the leadership role of human resources and people management and human capital management. The name keeps on changing to, I think some organizations want to reflect, hey, we've changed the leadership here. So they can really be a partner. I mean, I've worked in organizations where the minute we saw bullying, it was, whether it was real or not, the perception was real. So we would separate immediately so that it wouldn't continue. I mean, I lost some employees where I would loan them to other departments because there was a harassment and bullying issue, until we could figure out, like, hey, what's going on? Why did this happen? Is there anything we can do to intervene? I would hope, we end up with more of those organizations. Also, we talk about HR and managers and colleagues and peers. For some organizations, if you work in an academic organization or governmental agency, you might have the added option of going to an ombuds office. Neutral parties, and they could be a great resource to help with, is this something that can be managed, or
Mm,
is this something I have to remove myself from?
mm. So I think that there's another great comment here from John. Systemic bullying exists where clearly defined ethics and values aren't present. That's a telltale sign. So
Yep.
this is really important, because everybody's like, I want to work for a mission-based company. I want to work for, I want to work for sustainability. Well, that doesn't prevent, or isn't a reason why there's no bullying because it's a mission-based company. But I do think that there is a higher moral ethic at some of those companies, and
Yes.
hopefully this is a good sniffer. So thank you, John, for that.
If
I think that that's
you
really important.
those manuals that none of us want to read, like, the employee manual that you
Oh
get.
yeah, yeah, that you have to
If
sign off on.
Right. If there are many manuals now that have the statement that we are going to be a bullying-free
Mm,
environment, statements about what workplace bullying is beyond, they always have the sexual harassment and other harassment statements.
right.
But if they have a
It's
workplace
another
bullying
issue, right?
statement, then that may be a positive sign that this is an organization that's going to stop. They don't want a toxic workplace environment.
Right.
Um,
So thank you so much, Craig. There is a lot of systemic bullying, and we need systemic solutions for the underrepresented. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that could include just a ginormous opportunity. We know that neurodiversity in the workplace is very present, and also getting finally some important recognition. We know that there are, and we're going to have a guest in a couple of weeks talking about what it is like going through the hiring process as somebody who identifies as lesbian, and understanding what the biases and how to overcome them are with underrepresented communities. I too am an underrepresented community because I have a mental health issue called alcoholism, and I was bullied for that. So there's a lot of nuances in that whole area. And so I'm so happy that you brought that up, Craig. I want to
Absolutely.
Leslie, I
Can I
want to
add
know,
one thing to the
please, please.
so inclusion is a big topic, diversity, equity, inclusion. An organization that focuses on that, workplace bullying is typically not a part of that environment. So
Mm,
all voices at the table, everyone feeling like they have a voice, it changes the whole dynamic, and toxicity is usually not a part of it.
okay, so this is
Hmm.
another aside from ethics and values, a and I environment is going to be more apt or could be a better,
Yes.
indicator that there is less bullying. The last thing I really want to talk about, because I think that this is a really tricky situation, is Leslie, how do you comport yourself with your peers and direct reports, riding that line between here I am, a professional doing my job, when you are also under this tremendous angst and stress of the bullying? How do you
Absolutely.
separate that? That's got to be hell.
Right. I think that the way to look at it is, as upsetting and stressful as it is, remember either a time that you've experienced or someone else you were working with had an issue that was impacting their performance, whatever that issue was. They may have tended to take more breaks, you take days off when you need it. And when you're interacting with people at work, you might say, "Hey, I'm dealing with a situation. It's obvious it's impacting my work. I really thank you for your understanding during this time." You don't have to reveal what it is because it may be a case, so to speak, that's being investigated, but handle it in that same way that any of us would when you bring something to the office, because we can't, our personal stuff doesn't like stop at the door. We bring it to the office. And I think that's reasonable, especially when you're thanking people like, "Hey, I get it. I appreciate your understanding and this may impact you as well."
Mm. So I think that is, hi Santosh. I think that that's really, really important. Buy yourself some distance.
Yes.
You do not have to share this. And I would also really echo what you're sharing, Leslie, with respect to using your mental health days
Yes.
and making sure that you are not bleeding this over into other areas. Sometimes that heightens the situation. So, to the best of your abilities, keep yourself separate from the issue and focus in on the work. I know that sounds really trite, but at the same time, it may be the most enduring strategy that you have.
And I would say you have to go back to whomever in your organization is managing this reported situation, pressure them like, "Hey, we need to do something, um, because this shouldn't go on. It can't go
Absolutely.
on. You've reported it now, and most organizations don't want it to continue. Otherwise, they're as complicit as the person bullying you."
Exactly. A
Um,
lot of exposure. I want to field this question from Robin. Good morning, Robin. It says, why and how do bullies pick their targets? If you're a consultant, not an employee, how do you keep these people at bay, especially if it's not recognized at the top?
Wow. Well, several questions in there. So it sounds like this would be a person who's like observing from outside in. Um, I would say that sometimes those observing outside in, there could be a misinterpretation because if you're not in it,
Right.
and I'll just give a completely separate analogy. We've all seen like families interacting with each other. And if you're an outsider to it, it could, you'll go, "Oh my God, you guys fight so much. What are you talking about? We're not fighting." So just know that within an organization or a department, there could be a different language they're speaking. It's their way of speaking to each other, so we shouldn't assume. But if there is bullying going on from an outsider, and an outsider observes it, whether you're outside the company or the department, I recommend not going to the, hey, I see you're being bullied. Hey, is there anything I can do to support you? That
Mhm.
may be the opening they need to say, you know what? Yes, I'm being bullied and I don't know how to manage it. Thank you. I thought I was misinterpreting it. And an outside view may really help them have the confidence
Mm.
to go and report it.
But Leslie, what about this first part? Why and how do bullies pick their targets? How do you know? Like, am I wearing like a sign say "Pick me, I'm available for bullying"?
From my experience, and I'm not the expert on this, I would say that what I've seen is that the bully is picking whoever's around them.
Mm.
And it's more, we have to look at this whole equation as the bully, it's about them, not us. It's their issues, it's their insecurities, and whatever else is driving their bullying. It's not you. They haven't necessarily picked you. It's whoever's in front of them and who they perceive they can control.
Okay, so it could be I'm the target of the day, and then tomorrow you're the target, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like musical
Yes.
bullying. Great.
Yeah. Because I don't think, bullying is not necessarily a conscious choice. I'm going to grow
Mm.
up to be a bully. So just with that in mind, realize that there's so many layers that's instigating this person to be a bully that they're not consciously picking, let me pick my target over there.
Right, sure. I really, really love this comment. Oh, this is like I like want this t-shirt. Cut the cancer. It spreads. Wish I
Yeah.
was an optimist, but I'm a born realist. Just as I learned and keenly developed the skill base to rightly delegate and confront, I clearly missed a sweet spot. Pausing is not my specialty as I run off efficiency. But yeah, this is a missing link in miss of my build. Proof we're never too old to learn. Great stuff always. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yes, so this power of the pause, I have a sticker on my posted on my um, computer: pause when agitated or doubtful. I have to remind myself too, pausing is a beautiful thing, and like I said,
Yeah.
it took me 50 years to find my pause button, and I'm not going to lose it. So
Yes.
we are wrapping up here, Leslie. You're such a gem. I think
Oh,
you have given us so, so, so much to chew on. I want to also add this last piece from John. I saw this last comment, this idea here that it exists when there are less defined ethics. Look for ethics, morals,
yes,
values, not just
absolutely.
posted in the manual. Ask about it in interviews. Is
Yes.
this part, how are they rewarded? How are they measured? How are they integrated?
Yeah.
Ask questions, such a telltale sign,
How
as is.
do department, like if you get a chance, and hopefully you do, to not only interview who you're going to work for, the team. Hey, how does the team communicate? Hey, how do you get rewarded for wins? How do you communicate with your manager? How are we evaluated? How do we discuss project wins and loses and mistakes?
Right. What happens
A
when
lot of
things go
that
off
can
the
reveal
rail?
the
Who's at
process.
fault, right? Like, like I really think that a lot of this, not all of this, but a lot of this can get unearthed early on. And at the end of the day, we did not talk about this, but what I also want to really do a shout out for is trust your gut. Trust
Yes.
your gut, because you could have all the information in the world that these check a box, and you still are feeling something icky going on.
Yep.
And I've ignored that many times. And I know a lot of my clients have said the same thing. I felt it early on and I didn't listen to it. So you have to be able to get yourself some pausing time to really ask yourself that question. even if it doesn't say bullying, or even if I don't smell it right away, there is an instinct there. And I really encourage people to move away from the bullying that you can choose to avoid.
Exactly. And remember, you have the right not to be bullied. So that's where inclusion really is empowering, because you should be able to have a voice to say, this is going on, and you as an organization have to remove me from this because I can't put up with it.
Right. So bullies don't have a really strong level of awareness,
No.
and that's part of the reason why they are not great managers. But that's really for another topic.
Yes.
I think that what we want to leave this session with is clearly thank you, Leslie, for all of the great tips. Thank you, audience, for all the
Yes.
great comments and questions. And we'll see you next week. The topic is under wraps. I'm not going to share
Oh,
with you now, but
we will
really,
join.
really, yes, yes, yes. And thank you, everyone. Have a great bully-free day, and don't be a bully if you are. If you think that you are one, you're probably not watching. But let's stop this craziness, because it's hurting everyone in so many different directions. So don't kick the dog. Pause before you want to bark at your spouse or your kids. And like Leslie said, I love the idea of practicing the pause before you really need it. So
Yes. And
I'm going
let's
to
keep the
pause.
conversation going in the
Let's keep the
comments.
conversation going. Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Leslie. Hang around for 2 minutes
Yes.
afterwards. Mwah. Thank you all, LinkedIn.